Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I hope you had a great weekend and happy Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, hope you had a chance to listen to my interview with Kathleen Miner. She's a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, and we touched on being fit after 50, raising kids with social media, her routine to master the day, and much, much more. So really interesting interview with Kathleen. If you're over 50 and you have kids, probably definitely worth a listen. She came out with a couple companies to combat social media with our kids and really enjoyed it. So that's episode 330, my interview with Kathleen Miner. Now, in today's micro podcast, I want to touch on actually a chapter in my book, The Stepladder System. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. You can also see my new glasses that my wife got me. So hopefully you like those. Feel free to write in the comments what your thoughts on those are, but I enjoy them. So anyways, this, one of the chapters we talk about in the Stepladder System is chapter 10, The Truth About Willpower. Now, willpower is something I think that's become more and more prevalent now because in our modern environment, we are absolutely thrown everything at us in order to eat, in order to buy, and do things that we probably don't want to do. And so it can become an enormous challenge, and that's for everybody. I mean, whether there's Starbucks at every corner or McDonald's on every corner, or the second you open up an app on like Instagram, you get thrown these food, these like what they would call food porn thrown at you left and right for fast, cheap foods, processed foods, 24/7. And, so I think it's important now more than ever that you have to just be aware of both, how you're acting when it comes to, all these temptations, and the environment that we are in can obviously plays a huge role as well. So I'm going to touch on today a few things from that chapter, along with some tips to sort of help you combat all those temptations that we're being thrown at from a daily basis. Lack of willpower obviously is, it's one reason why we might fail to reach our goals. But quoting the willpower researcher Roy Baumeister, he's a doctrine psychologist at Florida State, describes there's three necessary components to achieve our objectives, to reach our goals, right? Whether that goal is losing inches around our waist, having more energy, whatever that is, he says, first you need to establish the motivation for the change, right? Why do you want to do that? And set a goal. I like to say set a goal and a deadline. Second, you need to monitor your behavior toward that goal. And third component is the willpower. Now, whether your goal is, like I said, to lose weight, kick a smoking habit, maybe spend less time on Facebook, willpower is obviously a critical step in achieving these outcomes. Now, how you define that? I was looking up different definitions. I mean, willpower can be used as saying your determination, your drive, your resolve, your self-discipline, your self-control. Here's a good one: the ability to delay gratification, resisting short-term temptations in order to meet long-term goals. I thought that was a good one. There's actually a theory, and I would say I believe in this, is this willpower depletion that has emerged through some research every day, because every day in one form or the other, we are being tested, right? We're exerting willpower. I mean, this could be as simple as instead of, surfing the web, you work on your expense report. This could be a temptation in the morning to eat one thing and not the other thing. This willpower, let's just say you start at 100, and then by the end of the day, it probably gets whittled down to whatever, 50, 40, 30, whatever it is, with all these temptations, and you're trying to sort of navigate yourself through them. Because every day we have these decisions, and these could be almost subconscious decisions. You don't even realize that you're making day in, day out And it's one of those things where, I talk about with clients is saving things that are really important towards the end of the day is probably not a recipe for getting them done, at least for me. So I'll just give you some tips around what I do and what I've worked on with clients. And one of those things is get the biggest, most important things done early on, right away. When that willpower is up to 100 and you're ready to go, the day's upon you. I think it's important, and I make it important to make sure that I get those most important things done first thing. So that's a big thing. So if your number one goal is to put on muscle, well, your first thing should be resistance training right off the bat. Get it done first thing. Now, you might say, well, I don't have time. Well, you can make time if you're really going to get it done. But if all I'm saying is if you save that really important task that is like high up in your priority list to later in the day, your chances of getting it done are just becoming less and less. And so it becomes like, it's like limited willpower. It just can get chipped away throughout the day, and excuses come up. And this happens to everybody. So I think it's important just to be self-aware of this going on. And I'm sure you can think of circumstances where you wanted to get something done and you sort of put it off till later and it never got done. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. Now, another big thing is that my wife and I do when it comes to like even our eating goals, right? We tend not to purchase things that we don't really think are going to serve us, like cookies and, chips and cakes and things, croissants, or things that like we might have a temptation to eat. Now, I know it can be tough because especially if you have kids around and maybe they want to have this from time to time. And I think you can treat the kids the same way where, if you don't buy it, they're not going to eat it. So, and they're going to sort of follow your lead. But if you do have a few things that aren't maybe the best thing for you, what I like to do is either put them in a cabinet that you don't see as often, put them high up. I think the worst thing you could do is have those trays or those bowls of like, let's just say peanut M&Ms. I think we all know, like, if you're at work and you have those bowls of candy just laying around, just staring you at the face every time you walk past them, slowly that limited willpower and that is just going to deplete until you're like, okay, I'm ready. It's like going to the store when you're hungry. Probably not the best idea. And so that leads to another point is, let's say you're going to a Super Bowl party or somewhere where there's going to be a lot of temptation. I tend to like to eat before I go to those places. I'll eat, I know what I'm eating. I eat my, whatever my meals are, and I go to those places. Maybe I'll have a little bit of whatever's there, but the temptation to eat those things goes way down if I go in when I'm somewhat like 80% full. So being prepared is, I think, half the battle for a lot of this stuff. Another thing that I like is like if you find that you're snacking or like after dinner a lot, go for a walk, get yourself out of the kitchen. You're setting yourself up for success big time by doing that. And that's something that I try to do after most meals is just get up and go for a walk, because you come back sort of like out of sight, out of mind. You're away from your kitchen. So your tendency is not to just go back and snack more. So that's a great one. Staying busy. When I was doing fasting more, I don't fast as much, but I do like to keep, a good few, 3-4 hours between meals. And if you find that you're snacking all the time, or, you're eating late at night, first of all, obviously stay out of the kitchen, but two is keeping your mind busy is really important. When I was doing fasting, that was like probably my number one tip was to just, you always find those days where you have a lot going on, food's sort of not at the forefront of your mind. So I think it's important to you got to play tricks with your mind. If you're, I would say that, if you can just get out of the kitchen, I think, and maybe, go read a book or do something that'll keep your mind away from whatever it is, if you're, snacking. This is a helpful tip because You just got to sort of play tricks on yourself every once in a while. And so staying busy is a good one. And I talked about it in my book, focusing on your why, really important, really why you want to achieve your goals. Every time you go for whatever that's not serving you, maybe ask yourself, is this going to serve me is this going to get me closer to my goal or farther away from my goal? And that goal has to be really clear. So, lastly, I would say is getting a coach is really helpful, right? Having someone there to be accountable with. I have coaches in all parts of my life, and whether it's learning an instrument or helping me with business, these are individuals who have been there, done that, and they can sort of keep you on track. So temptations are everywhere. I don't think it's about being perfect, but just understand that there's this theory of willpower depletion that goes on throughout the day, and it's important that you can resist these temptations and put yourself in a environment where you can succeed. And that's all I'm saying is put yourself in these environments, with not buying it, not buying certain things. That way you're not prone to go eat those things, right? Maybe if you're driving and you're always driving past the same place, the same McDonald's or Starbucks that you stop, and you want to obviously not have those anymore, try to find a different route to work or wherever you're going. So if you can control the environment as much as possible, I think that'll go a long way as well. So that's all I wanted to touch on today. Temptations are everywhere. I'll say one more thing is like, if you find, like, for example, you're scrolling a lot on social media, okay, you can set locks on your phone, and you can do this for your kids that will essentially turn the app off at a certain amount of time. So that's another thought, just if you find yourself scrolling a lot, or your kids scrolling a lot, to just help put you into an environment that'll help you succeed. So that's all I wanted to touch on today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, brian@briangrin.com. And I look forward to a great week and talking to you on Friday with another great interview. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.